There is a kind of deed that almost nobody notices. No camera catches it. No caption is written under it. No one reposts it. No one claps. No one says, MashaAllah, look how righteous this person is. It happens quietly, in a room with the door shut, in a moment so ordinary that if you were not careful, you might even think it meant nothing. And yet that may be the very deed that rises through the heavens faster than the things people spend years trying to be seen for. We live in a time where nearly everything is performed. Pain is performed, generosity is performed, worship is performed, even kindness is sometimes arranged in a way that makes sure somebody is watching. A person gives but makes sure the world hears about it. A person helps but leaves a trail behind so their image stays polished. A person cries but part of them is still aware of the audience. And slowly, without realizing it, people begin to think that what matters most is what gets noticed. But Allah does not judge like people judge. People are impressed by volume. Allah looks at sincerity. People are moved by what is visible. Allah knows what is hidden. People reward what is dramatic. Allah sees the thing you did in silence while your heart was struggling, while your ego was losing, while no one would ever know what it cost you. That is what makes hidden deeds so powerful. They have no decoration, no performance, no public reward. If they are done for one reason only. Because somewhere inside you, there was still a part of your soul that wanted Allah more than attention. And that changes everything. Maybe it was a prayer you made for someone who hurt you. Maybe it was money you gave while pretending it was nothing. Maybe it was a sin you almost committed, then pulled your hand back from at the last second. Maybe it was one tear in the dark when your chest was full and your tongue could not even form the words. Maybe it was patience when no one would have blamed you for exploding. Maybe it was a smile you gave to someone whose whole world was quietly collapsing. Maybe you forgot that moment 5 minutes later. Allah did not. That is the part many people do not fully grasp. You and I forget our own good deeds all the time. We move on, we get busy, we get distracted. We assume the moment passed. But nothing sincere disappears with Allah. Not one whisper, not one restrained urge, not one soft intention, not one heartbeat that turned back to Him when it could have turned somewhere else. And maybe that is why some people will arrive on the Day of Judgment stunned. Stunned because they will see rewards for moments they buried under years of living. Small things, secret things, half-forgotten things. Things that looked tiny on earth and turned out to be enormous with Allah. So tonight I want you to slow down and sit with this properly. Not the big public victories. Not the polished parts of your faith that people can easily admire. I want you to think about the hidden moments. The ones that had no witness except the Lord who created you. Because maybe your most beloved deed was not the one you remember most. Maybe it was the one nobody ever saw. Maybe, without even realizing it, you did something so pure, so private, so sincere, that it became beloved to Allah in a way your mind still cannot measure. There is something sacred about being good when nobody is looking. Not good because your reputation is on the line. Not good because you are afraid of being exposed. Not good because people expect it from you. But good in that quiet, trembling, deeply honest way that only happens when the door is shut and your heart knows it has a choice. That kind of sincerity is rare. And because it is rare, it is precious. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, taught this ummah to love deeds that are protected from people's eyes. He taught us about charity so secret that the left hand does not know what the right hand spent. Think about how intimate that image is. Not just hidden from others, hidden so deeply that the deed is almost folded into the soul itself. No display, no reminder, no branding of the self. Just an act and Allah. That is purity. And the strange thing is that the world will always try to convince you that hidden means weak. That if nobody saw it, it did not matter. If nobody praised it, it had no impact. If it cannot be shown, it cannot be powerful. But hidden does not mean small. Some of the strongest things in your life are hidden. Your intention is hidden. Your fear is hidden. Your wounds are hidden. Your sincerity is hidden. The roots of a tree are hidden, yet they hold the whole tree upright. The foundations of a building are hidden, yet they carry everything above them. In the same way, hidden deeds may be the foundation of your relationship with Allah. Maybe nobody knows that you send money to someone every month and pretend it is nothing. Maybe nobody knows that you wake up some nights and ask Allah to forgive your parents. Maybe nobody knows that when everybody else was speaking harshly, you stayed silent because you knew one more sentence would have crossed the line. Maybe nobody knows how many sins you did not do. And let us pause there, because people often forget this. Not every great deed is something you added. Sometimes it is something you refused. Sometimes the deed is that you stopped, you closed the tab, you deleted the message, you walked away, you swallowed the sentence, you turned your eyes away, you stepped back from the haram when your body wanted to go forward. To the world, nothing happened. With Allah, everything happened. Because that is the battlefield nobody sees, the battle between what your nafs wants and what your soul knows. And perhaps one of the greatest lies people believe is that only visible worship counts. They admire what is loud and overlook what is pure. They think the one with the strongest image must be closest to Allah. But image is not closeness. Public admiration is not nearness. Sometimes the person with the least visible shine has a heart so sincere that the heavens know their name. Maybe she is an exhausted mother who makes dua for her children while washing dishes. Maybe he is a young man fighting a private temptation every single night and nobody has any idea how hard he is trying. Maybe it is an old man at the back of the masjid who nobody notices but whose eyes fill in sujood because he has spent years quietly speaking to Allah. Maybe it is a woman who forgave someone and told nobody because she wanted the reward to stay untouched. This is what makes hidden deeds beloved. They are clean, they are intimate, they are free from the dirt of showing off. They come from that secret chamber inside the believer where intention is real and the soul is standing naked before its Lord. And maybe that is why some deeds that look small on earth arrive immense in the heavens. One tear may outweigh 1,000 public words. One private restraint may be heavier than years of admired performance. One whispered dua for another person may be opening doors for you right now and you do not even know it. One quiet moment of forgiveness may have erased from your record things you were still carrying shame over. One sincere smile at the exact moment another person was breaking may have become charity written in light. So do not underestimate the hidden things. The things you are tempted to call small may be the very things Allah calls beloved. There are nights when a person does not have a speech in them, no eloquence, no perfect Arabic, no long list of beautifully arranged words, just a chest that feels too tight and eyes that suddenly cannot hold it anymore. And then the tear comes. Nobody sees it. The whole house is asleep. The phone is face down. The noise is gone. And for a moment, it is just you and Allah and this pain you have been carrying like a stone inside your ribs. That moment is not empty. That moment is worship. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, told us about the one who remembers Allah in solitude and whose eyes overflow with tears. On the day when people will be desperate for shade, that person will be among those honored by Allah. Think about that. Not because they gave a performance, not because they looked spiritual, but because in privacy when they could have distracted themselves, numbed themselves, scrolled themselves into forgetfulness, they turned to Allah and broke open before Him. There is something unbelievably loved by Allah in a heart that still comes back to Him when it is hurting. Not when it has all the answers, not when it has cleaned itself up, not when it has become impressive, while it is still messy, while it is still ashamed, while it is still confused, while it is still trying not to fall apart. That tear says, Ya Rab, I still know where to go. And maybe you do not even realize how precious that is. Maybe you think your tears are a sign that your faith is weak. Maybe you think if I was stronger, I would not cry like this. No. Sometimes the tear is the evidence that the heart is alive. A hard heart can go years without crying to Allah. A distracted heart can stay busy forever and never pause long enough to feel. But when the soul remembers its Lord in loneliness and something inside it melts, that is not failure, that is a mercy. Because Allah is not only listening to the words you manage to say, He understands the ache that your tongue cannot explain. He knows the grief under your silence. He knows the guilt you still have not spoken aloud. He knows the fear you bury during the day. He knows the heartbreak you smile through in front of people. He knows exactly what that tear contains. And who knows what that tear did for you? Maybe that was the night a sin was forgiven. Maybe that was the night your heart softened after months of being numb. Maybe that was the night a dua began its journey to acceptance. Maybe that was the night Allah looked at you with mercy while you thought you were just crying because you were weak. People love to measure worship by what is visible. How long was the prayer? How beautiful was the recitation? How impressive was the effort? But sometimes one honest tear in the darkness contains more truth than 1,000 actions done while the heart is asleep. And this is why hidden moments matter so much, because they show who you are when the masks come off. Anyone can sound devoted around other people. Anyone can look composed in public. But the real relationship between you and Allah is revealed in those lonely minutes when no one is there to guide the mood, when nobody is watching your face, when there is nothing to gain except His nearness. Maybe you have had a night like that already. You sat on the edge of the bed after everyone was asleep. You made wudu because your soul felt dirty. You raised your hands and did not know where to begin. You said, Ya Allah once, then the tears came before the sentence did. Maybe you forgot that night later. Maybe you woke up the next morning embarrassed by how broken you felt. Allah did not forget it. He never does. And if you are carrying pain now, do not rush to bury it under noise. Let it turn you toward Him. Let your sadness become a door instead of a wall. Let the loneliness drive you somewhere holy. Because sometimes the hidden deed that touches the mercy of Allah is not some giant act. Sometimes it is simply that in your worst moment you still turned your face toward Him instead of away. Sometimes the most powerful love in Islam is the love that asks for nothing in return. You see someone suffering, maybe they never told you directly, but you can sense it. Their voice is thinner than usual, their eyes look tired, something in them feels off. Or maybe you do know exactly what they are carrying. A sickness, a loss, a divorce, a debt, a heartbreak, a quiet depression nobody really understands. And you cannot fix it. You cannot rewrite their life. You cannot erase their pain. You cannot take their burden into your own body. So you do something hidden. You make dua for them. Not to be seen as kind. Not because they will pay you back. Not because you want them to owe you emotionally. But because something in your heart becomes soft and you quietly say, Ya Allah, help them. Ease it for them. Open a door for them. Put light where it feels dark. And then you move on. That may be one of the most beautiful deeds you ever do. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, told us that when a Muslim makes dua for their brother or sister in their absence, an angel says, Ameen, and for you the same. Just sit with that for a second. You were asking for someone else's healing, and the heavens responded by asking healing for you. You were asking for someone else's relief, and an angel was asking relief for you. You were standing in the unseen for another person, and the unseen stood up for you in return. How generous is Allah? How beautiful is this religion? It teaches you that hidden mercy toward others never leaves you empty. It returns, sometimes not in the shape you expected, but always in a way that is full of wisdom. Maybe you prayed for someone's marriage to be saved and Allah protected your heart from a future sorrow. Maybe you prayed for someone's child to recover and Allah sent unseen mercy into your own home. Maybe you prayed for a stranger after hearing one line of their story, and years later a door opened for you that made no sense except that Allah had stored something for you. This is the beauty of sincere dua. It is not loud, it is not glamorous, it does not make you look important. It is just love in secret, care in secret, concern in secret. And Allah loves hearts that still carry other people gently when there is nothing worldly to gain from it. And perhaps some of us underestimate this because it feels too simple. You did not build an orphanage. You did not lead a major project. You did not give a lecture. You just whispered a prayer. But with Allah, the value of a deed is not measured only by scale. It is measured by sincerity, by purity, by what the heart contained when the deed was done. A person can perform something huge while seeking themselves. Another person can whisper one hidden dua and be rewarded beyond what they imagined because they were completely sincere. And do you know what is even more beautiful? Sometimes the person you prayed for never knows, which means the deed remains protected, untouched by their praise, untouched by your ego, safe, clean, between you and Allah. That is why the hidden deed has such a special sweetness. It belongs to no one else. There is a kind of strength that does not look like strength at first. It does not roar. It does not dominate. It does not make people gasp. In fact, from the outside, some people might even mistake it for weakness. It is the strength to forgive when you had the full power to expose. That is not easy talk. That is not poetry. That is one of the hardest things a heart can do. Someone lies about you, betrays you, damages your name, breaks something in you, and now you have the evidence, the messages, the truth, the story. You could ruin them. You could humiliate them publicly. You could return the wound with precision, and a lot of people would even support you. They would say, do it, they deserve it. Then comes the real test. What do you choose when revenge is available? Because it is easy to speak about forgiveness when the wound is small. It is harder when your pride is bleeding, when the injustice is fresh, when your chest burns every time you think about it, when your mind keeps rehearsing the speech that would destroy them. And then in that private war, you remember Allah. You remember the verse, let them pardon and overlook. Would you not love that Allah should forgive you? What a question. Not a threat, a question. Would you not love that Allah should forgive you? As if Allah is saying, I know they hurt you, I know what they did, but remember how badly you need my mercy too. That changes the conversation. Suddenly it is not just about them anymore. It is about you and Allah, about the kind of heart you want to carry to Him, about whether you will choose your ego's satisfaction or your Lord's pleasure. And some people in that hidden moment choose to let go. Not because the pain was fake, not because justice does not matter, not because boundaries should disappear, but because they wanted Allah more than revenge. That choice is huge. When nobody sees the restraint it took, when nobody knows how many drafts you typed and deleted, when nobody hears how your soul fought with itself, when nobody knows you cried and still decided to leave the matter with Allah, that is worship. It is easy to look righteous in obvious acts. It is much harder to be righteous when you have been deeply wronged and the nafs wants payback. And that is why hidden forgiveness can be so beloved to Allah, because it costs you. It costs your anger. It costs your pride. It costs the fantasy of making them feel what you felt. And still you say, Ya Allah, I leave it with you. I want you to deal with this better than I ever could. That does not mean you become foolish. That does not mean you allow continued harm. That does not mean you erase the lesson. Islam is not asking you to become spineless. But there is a difference between taking wise distance and feeding your heart with poison every day. There is a difference between protecting yourself and living as a prisoner of bitterness. Sometimes the hidden deed that touches the mercy of Allah is that you finally stop carrying someone inside your chest like a burning coal. You forgive. Not to make their crime beautiful, but to keep your soul from becoming ugly. You release, not because the past did not matter, but because you want your heart free enough to keep walking toward Allah. And maybe the world never applauds that. Maybe nobody posts about it. Maybe the person never even realizes what you chose not to do to them. Allah knows. That is enough. Then there are the deeds that look so small you almost laugh at the idea that they matter. A smile. A soft word, a hand moved slightly to make room for someone, a glass of water offered before being asked, a text sent at the right moment, a kind face in a place where someone was expecting coldness. But small is not the same as insignificant. People are carrying battles you cannot see. The brother at the masjid whose eyes look normal may have spent the whole drive there fighting not to break down. The woman at work who says she is fine may be carrying a grief that nobody in the room understands. The old man at the grocery store may have gone all day without a single warm interaction. The teenager who looks angry may actually be lonely enough to feel invisible. And then one person shows them gentleness. Just one. Not a speech, not a miracle, just a little mercy at the exact right time. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said that your smile for your brother is charity. What a generous religion this is. It takes something so small, something many people would overlook, and tells you that with the right heart it becomes sadaqah. Why? Because charity is not only money. Charity is relief. Charity is light. Charity is giving another human being some ease. And sometimes ease arrives through the simplest thing. A smile that says, I see you. A tone that says, you do not have to defend your humanity right now. A kindness that lands on a person right when their inner world is close to collapsing. You may never know what your small act interrupted. You may never know what dark thought it softened. You may never know how many people are walking around asking Allah for a sign that they still matter, and your tiny gesture became part of the answer. This is why believers should never become arrogant about scale. Sometimes the deed that tips a scale in your favor is not the one you built your identity around. Sometimes it is the one you barely noticed yourself doing. A harmful object removed from a road, a smile offered in a hallway, a word of comfort to someone who was about to lose hope, a door held open, a harsh response swallowed, a seat given up, a cup of tea made for a tired parent, a patient reply to an elderly relative, a child spoken to gently when nobody would have blamed you for being rough. These are not random details. These are the materials from which the believer builds a hidden life with Allah. And perhaps one reason these little deeds are so beloved is because they reveal what your heart has become. Anybody can do good when it benefits their image. But who are you in the small moments? Who are you when there is nothing to gain? When the deed is too tiny to impress anyone? When nobody will hear about it later? That is where sincerity lives. There is another hidden deed that may be among the greatest of all. It happens in silence. It leaves no evidence behind except in the unseen. And most people will never understand how heroic it was because outwardly it looks like nothing happened. You were tempted and you said no. That is all. But that is not all. Because temptation is not a joke when it comes wrapped in privacy, desire, loneliness and opportunity. When nobody would know. When there is no social cost. When the path to the sin is easy and the excuse is ready and your nafs is fully awake. Those are the moments that show you to yourself. Late at night with your phone in your hand. A conversation drifting where it should not drift. A website one click away. A lie that would save your image. A bit of backbiting everyone would laugh at. A message you know you should not send. Money you could take without anyone catching you. Eyes you could let wander. An impulse to cross a line because it is just once. And then in that private space, something in you remembers Allah. Not perfectly. Maybe your heart is shaking. Maybe the urge is strong. Maybe part of you is still arguing. But still somewhere in the middle of that battle you say, no, Allah sees me. That sentence changes your destiny more than you may realize. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, told us about the person who was invited by temptation and beauty. Then said, I fear Allah. That person is among the 7 shaded by Allah on the day when there will be no shade but His. Why such an honor? Because they passed the exam of the unseen. They remembered Allah when remembering Him actually cost something. That is taqwa. Not the version people quote in speeches, the real version. The one that enters a private room with you. The one that sits with you in the dark. The one that grips your wrist right before you cross the line and says, do not trade eternity for this. And yes, sometimes it feels ugly. Sometimes resisting sin does not feel inspiring. It feels frustrating. It feels heavy. It feels like a loss. Your body is restless. Your ego is angry. Your mind keeps whispering, nobody will know. But the believer's victory is not always sweet in the moment. Sometimes the hidden deed is that you closed the door while every appetite inside you wanted it open. Sometimes the hidden deed is that you cried after walking away because part of you hated how hard it was. Sometimes the hidden deed is that you made wudu with shaking hands because you needed to physically cool the fire inside you. Sometimes the hidden deed is that you deleted the number, blocked the account, stood up from the bed, turned off the screen, and chose Allah while no human being would ever understand the battle you just won. Do not underestimate those moments. That may be the kind of deed the angels write with love. And here is the mercy in it. Even if you slipped before, even if you are not who you want to be yet, every time you resist for Allah's sake, you are proving that your soul is still alive. Every time you return, every time you step back from the edge, every time you refuse the sin after the desire rose up, you are telling Allah, Ya Rab, I am still trying to choose you. That effort matters. The hidden battle matters. The unseen struggle matters. The world often only honors finished people. Islam honors striving people too. People who are in the middle of the war. People who fall and stand, weep and return, want and restrain, stumble and repent. People whose hidden life is full of battles nobody knows they are fighting. Do not ever think Allah overlooks that effort. He sees what it cost you. He sees the door you did not open. He sees the pleasure you denied yourself for His sake. He sees the message you erased. He sees the thought you pushed away. He sees the haram you stepped back from while the rest of the world assumed nothing was happening. And perhaps on the day when everything is brought out, one of your greatest deeds will not be something you did. It will be something you did not do because you feared Allah. And now comes one of the most comforting truths a believer can carry. The deed you forgot is not forgotten with Allah. Life is crowded, days fold into weeks, weeks into years. We do not even remember all our conversations, let alone every small act of goodness we did. We forget the ride we gave somebody, the prayer we made in passing, the branch we moved, the message we sent, the smile we offered, the money we quietly slipped into someone's hand, the moment we lowered our voice instead of escalating, the apology we gave. The little sacrifice we made for our parents, the afternoon we helped someone and thought nothing of it afterward. We forget because we are human. But Allah is Al-Hafiz, He preserves. He remembers what you do not. And one of the verses that should shake the believer awake is when Allah says that whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it. An atom's weight, something so tiny you would normally dismiss it without a second thought. Allah says you will see it. So imagine the mercy in that. Imagine standing on the day of judgment and finding rewards for things you buried under years of forgetfulness. Rewards for moments that never became part of your personal story because they seemed too small. Rewards for hidden kindnesses nobody thanked you for. Rewards for tears you thought were just weakness. Rewards for patience you thought went unnoticed. Rewards for a secret struggle you thought nobody appreciated. And then you realize your Lord missed nothing. Not the effort, not the intention, not the pain underneath the action, not the context, not the sincerity. Everything was kept. How merciful is a Lord who stores your hidden moments for you until the day you need them most. And maybe that is the part that should fill you with hope right now, because many of us feel inadequate. We think my worship is not enough. My deeds are too inconsistent. My life is too messy. I have wasted too much time. But Allah's generosity is beyond your calculations. He can take a moment you barely remember and make it the reason for mercy. He can take a deed no human being respected and raise it until it becomes precious. He can take an intention you never got to complete and reward you as though it had already been done. Maybe you wanted to help and could not afford it. Maybe you wanted to wake for tahajjud and exhaustion beat you that night. Maybe you wanted to fast but illness got in the way. Maybe you wanted to reconcile but the opportunity never came. If the heart was sincere, Allah knows. He is not waiting to undercount you. He is more generous than that. There is even something deeply moving in the hadith of the man who was forgiven because he removed something harmful from the path. One obstacle, one act, quietly done, no audience. No grand identity built around it, just care, just usefulness, just one believer or even one human being deciding that somebody else should not be harmed if they can help it. And Allah loved that enough to turn it into salvation. This is not a religion that only honors the spectacular. It is a religion that honors the sincere. And maybe that should change the way you walk through your day. Maybe you do not have to wait for some huge opportunity to become beloved to Allah. Maybe belovedness is being built in the tiny hidden decisions. In how you answer your mother when you are tired. In whether you lower your gaze when nobody is there to praise your discipline. In whether you make dua for the one who hurt you instead of cursing them. In whether you give while pretending you did nothing. In whether you tell the truth when lying would make life easier. In whether you still say Alhamdulillah through a season you do not understand. In whether you choose softness when harshness would feel better. In whether you remember Allah in private. And maybe, just maybe, the hidden deed that touched the mercy of Allah was not dramatic at all. Maybe it was yesterday. Maybe it was that time you were about to say something cruel and stopped because you felt Allah near. Maybe it was the prayer you made for your father without telling him. Maybe it was the little money you handed to somebody and then changed the subject so they would not feel embarrassed. Maybe it was the way you kept someone's secret. Maybe it was the way you fought off a sin in the dark. Maybe it was the way you sat in your room and cried because you wanted Allah to forgive you more than you wanted to pretend you were fine. Maybe it was that one moment the whole world would call ordinary but the heavens recorded as sincere. Do not despise the hidden parts of your faith. That is where some of the most beautiful things live. And if you have spent a long time feeling invisible, hear this carefully. The believer is never truly unseen. Not with Allah. The world may pass over you. People may not understand your effort. Nobody may know how hard you are trying to stay clean in a dirty world. Nobody may know how much self-control it takes for you to smile, to keep going, to stay obedient, to hold your tongue, to lower your gaze, to forgive, to pray, to trust. But none of that is wasted. Allah sees. He saw the late night repentance. He saw the private battle. He saw the mercy you showed when revenge would have been easier. He saw the charity you hid. He saw the tear you wiped quickly. He saw the temptation you resisted. He saw the kindness you gave to someone who could never repay you. He saw the smile. He saw the patience. He saw the tired prayer. He saw the intention that never made it into action because life crushed you that day, and still He knew what was in your heart. And perhaps what should humble us most is this. Sometimes the deed that becomes dearest to Allah is not the deed we were most proud of. It is the one we never mentioned. The one we did and forgot. The one we protected from people. The one that came out of a sincere moment nobody else had access to. So keep your hidden life with Allah alive. Protect it. Feed it. Let there be deeds no one knows except Him. Let there be prayers you never speak about. Let there be charity no one can trace. Let there be tears no one sees. Let there be sins you fight off in silence. Let there be forgiveness you never announce. Let there be good you do and move on from. Because on the day when all masks are gone and all noise has died and every soul is desperate for mercy, you may find that the moments which looked smallest on earth were the ones shining brightest for you. And then you will understand something that this world almost trained you to forget. What is hidden from creation is never hidden from the Creator. What was invisible to people was never invisible to Allah. What you thought past was preserved. What you thought was too small was recorded. What you thought was just a private struggle may have been an act of worship. And maybe, without even realizing it, you did something beloved to Allah today. Maybe you held your tongue when you could have humiliated somebody. Maybe you gave quietly. Maybe you prayed for a soul in pain. Maybe you looked away from a sin. Maybe you softened your heart when bitterness was easier. Maybe you remembered Allah in a lonely room and your eyes filled. Maybe you did one hidden thing with a pure intention and the Lord of the heavens loved it. So do not stop. Keep doing good that no one can applaud. Keep building a secret history with Allah. Keep choosing sincerity over display. Keep filling the unseen with things you hope to meet again when you need them most. Because the people may forget you. You may even forget your own best moments. But Allah never forgets what was done for Him.